Thank you, everyone, for being here. And good morning. I want to thank our sign language, the lovely young ladies that are here every week. Thank you so much. I want to thank Patrick Leonardo, Director of Operations from AMR, the partnership and always being here, especially in the testing. Dr. Kerouac, again, faithfully always here, the President and CEO of Bay State Health Systems, and he'll be speaking shortly. Dr. Roos is unavailable today. I'll be reading a statement from him, the Chief Medical Officer from Mercy Hospital, Trinity Healthcare, and a couple of my cabinet heads are unavailable to be here today, but I do have reports as I deal with their situations from there. I want to give you a brief update. We're in a surge. We're in a spike right now. We have not seen these numbers, and Commissioner Helen Carlton-Harris will go into during her presentation. We have not seen these numbers since April and May. Very high numbers that we are seeing. Thursday, I'm going to kick in Thursday again. Last Thursday was very high again too. 102 Thursday. The weekend, 58 Friday, 90 Saturday, 23 Sunday, but the Maven system constantly gives updates that seem to go higher. We're working off a number, and that number is probably going to be adjusted to 45, 43 for total COVID cases. That probably could be higher. The positivity rate in testing is 4.9. It's nearly 5%, which keeps us in the red category. Overall, on the weekend, we had 171. The good news, knock on wood, is that the deaths, and again, one death is one too many, has stayed the same, and our sympathy, thoughts, and prayers, encouragement go out to the families that have been affected by the loss of loved ones. So that's 133 total. White is 57 for about 43%. Black is 31 at about 23.3%. Hispanic is 43 at about 32.3%, and Asian is 2 at 1.5%. Long-term care facilities have faced 57 deaths. Residential has faced 76. Our senior meals continue to be delivered to housebound seniors who need it, and I appreciate the collaboration there. We're very appreciative of Governor Baker and the Stop the Spread testing, which continues, and working very closely with AMR. I want to congratulate President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris on their election. And for Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, it's historic in nature. They take the helm right now of a divided, tired, but very proud and resilient nation. And I pray to God that they're given the wisdom and strength and fortitude and common sense to bring us all together in unity with mutual understanding and respect. It's time to move forward now. Spoke with Governor Baker a couple times Friday evening on his orders that he gave out. And again, masks now need to be worn, especially when you're outside and even inside. The 9:30 closing for restaurants, 10 o'clock, 10 to 5 advisory, curfew to stay off our roads. And again, you're looking at 10 inside residential and 25 overall to be outside. In consultation with Commissioner Helen Carlton-Harris, and Director of Parks and Facilities Management Pat Sullivan Friday evening. We have decided to keep C Arena closed for another 2 weeks. Hockey arenas or skating arenas are notorious for being spreaders, very difficult to contact trace. A lot of those teams and members travel. We want to reassess in 2 weeks pertaining to the C Arena. Superintendent Dan Warwick will speak to you more about the Governor and Secretary Riley's edicts, Commissioner Riley's edicts. We're going to delay our decision on how to move forward with our schools because we really do want to have a town hall meeting, and we're trying to get that arranged through Focus Springfield, what we wanted to do as we did before, and hear from our constituents. So that will delay the potential vote. We continue to move forward on refitting our school buildings and our buildings, and I'm very thankful to Pat Sullivan and his team and Helen Carlton Harris and my CAFO, TJ Plant, for the millions of dollars of funding, because we're going to go above and beyond for our students, our teachers, administrations, families, and also the city employees and constituents that come into the building. Pat Sullivan also, some good news, he'll elaborate. Very appreciative of the state. We're receiving a grant for Loon Pond. That's something that we wanted to pursue, so Pat will speak of that. We're on the heels of Veterans Day, and even though we cannot have our parade, which we have thousands of people that come down, and our junior ROTCs that shine very brightly from all our high schools, we must always remember and never forget the sacrifices that our veterans have made and continue to make so we can lead the lives we lead, whether good or bad. So I will have a ceremony at 11 a.m., City Hall steps, and we will do the March of the Wreaths, a Monument Way in Court Square. And I'm very appreciative of Veterans Director Tom Belton and Deputy Director Joey DeCaro as we continue to remember our veterans and look forward to another big parade next year once we defeat this COVID-19. I will also, the Italian Cultural Center, we will honor our Italian American War vets at 12:30 on Wednesday by the memorial there to all the Italian Americans who made the ultimate sacrifice by the Columbus statue. Just a brief update. Deputy Chief Bill Cochran's here representing Commissioner Clapperud. She's given that mask order to the dedicated and brave men and women in blue. I spoke with the officer in question again this weekend who took that attack with a hammer, and doing okay, but he's, the officer told me that he a little slow, knows what wants to be said, but that blow to his head has really delayed him. So we keep praying for him for a speedy recovery. There's an uptick in the police department with COVID-19. 8 are out, 14 are being tested, and 7 recruits also. Deputy Cochran will speak about a couple of shootings that occurred. They took 6 more guns off the streets over the weekend, putting their lives in harm's way. The deputy will speak of that. I think we're reaching well over 180 or getting toward well over 180 guns taken off the streets. Commissioner Calvi from Fire, 1 is down, COVID, in good shape, but he'll give you an update. Director Signoli is unable to be with us today. They're down 2, COVID, all caught up in yard waste. They finished up Saturday. Still in need of snowplow drivers, please. CDLs, whether with the city or local snowplow drivers, landscaping agencies, are very difficulty in getting qualified drivers with CDLs. Superintendent Dan Warwick is elated because his Notre Dame beat Clemson today, so he's jumping for joy. But and I think we said in our early morning cabinet head meeting that we're rivaling McDonald's now. Their old phrase. We're served over 4 million children and families with meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks, and Superintendent Warwick will speak on that. Again, he'll speak to you pertaining to the directions that are coming from Governor Baker and Commissioner Riley. Town Hall, again, is delayed. We continue our work on our buildings, and I believe all the student athletes have been or close to being tested. So we'll make a decision how we move forward with school sports or not. Director Sullivan, Pat Sullivan, he's down 7 COVID out, 7. He'll speak about Arena with Commissioner Helen Colton Harris. They continue to diligent work. We're already working within our school buildings and our municipal buildings to retrofit them above and beyond pertaining to COVID-19 standards. Chief Development Officer Tim Sheen, again, he is unavailable to be here today. They are down 1 with COVID. Mass growth capital deadline, again, this is the state money, November 12th. To all the businesses, the deadline, please. You can get up to $75,000 in grants. The fund that I put together, or we've put together through Wayfinders, of $2 million, is still accessible. That's for our residents who are having difficulties paying their rent, mortgage, and utilities. So please, if you need that help, Wayfinders. Our financial numbers, CAFO, TJ Plain indicates to me we're down $1.2 million for FY21. Since the start of this COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic, we're down $6.2 million. We've deficit spent $6.3 million. The majority of this money is going to the needs for COVID-19 and to retrofit our buildings. We'll go after every dime I can get my hands on, reimbursement through grants and FEMA to continue to knock that number down. We're not hopeful, and I hope it changes. I know that Chairman Neal, Congressman Neal, is fighting very hard for us on the federal level, but we don't know if you're going to see a federal stimulus deal that'll come about prior to the new administration taking office. We are hopeful that that stimulus deal come across with state and local monies, but right now it doesn't seem the Senate wants to move on that, so we cannot bank on that money, and we will make the proper financial adjustments if needed for FY22 and FY23. Let's see what happens with the new administration coming in, but the key is local and state government to plug the deficit holes due to COVID-19 that we need to address. On law, HR, legal, Attorney Bill Mahoney, unemployment rate is down to 6.9 in the United States. We're going to be, again, the new mask rules will come out. Bill and Helen indicate to me the Pfizer vaccine, good news that 90% has come back positive in that vaccine to deal with COVID-19. So that's some light at the end of the tunnel, but we need to be ever vigilant to knock down this surge and spike we're facing right now. Before I bring up Dr. Kerouac, I will read the brief statement from Dr. Robert Ruse, again, who sends his regrets. In a week where the United States has seen record numbers of new infections and cases, and hospitalization are rising across the country and here in the Commonwealth, there is no debating that we are now experiencing the beginning of a second surge. We are seeing it here in our local community. We are experiencing across Massachusetts, and we are on the precipice of a devastating few months across the country if this trajectory does not change significantly. At Mercy Medical Center, we continue to see rising numbers of infections and hospitalizations. This past week, the number of positive tests doubled from the prior week. Our test positivity rate went from 3% to 6%. We have seen more patients coming to our emergency department with symptoms or exposures to COVID. and we have hospitalized more patients as a result. As of this morning, we have 17 patients hospitalized with COVID. We do not have one, we only have one, we do only have one in intensive care. I want to be correct on that, intensive care unit, which is a result of utilizing treatments early in the course of illness and the younger population being infected. However, there still remains many people who remain vulnerable to developing very serious infections and dying from the virus. This morning, I am unable to participate in the press conference because I am representing our hospital at a meeting with other regional hospital leaders and the Department of Public Health focusing on developing a tiered approach to managing hospital capacity. We recognize as the rates rise in the community, we will see more hospitalized cases, and we are working together to ensure that we have plans in place here in Western Massachusetts to continue safely providing all types of care to you throughout this second surge. And then finally, that is in line with the guiding principles of our response at Mercy Medical Center. We will continue to be here for you, and we will always prioritize your safety and well-being of our community. Please remain vigilant in doing your part and follow the life-saving precautions of masking, physical distancing, and staying safe to protect yourself, your loved ones, and all of us. Thank you, and that's a statement from Dr. Robert Roos, who's the Chief Medical Officer of Mercy Medical Center. And with that, I'm going to shortly bring up Dr. Mark Kerouac. But again, I think you'll see, and you're going to hear from Helen and Dr. Kerouac, the demographics of the age have changed dramatically. It's many, many more young people. And you see them not wearing, you need to wear those masks. And you have to follow the precautions that we have put forth. With that, I'm now going to bring up the President and CEO of Bay State Health Systems, Dr. Mark Kerouac. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for this opportunity and for the cooperation of your team. I appreciate the statement from Dr. Roos. Mercy has been a very good partner, as have all the hospitals in Western Massachusetts. We have been meeting regularly, virtually, since March to plan surge capacity, hospital capacity across the region. I would reinforce what Dr. Roos has said. COVID-19 is continuing to increase across the world, across the country, and across the state. We've reached some rather grim round numbers with respect to caseloads, over 50 million across the globe, with 1.25 million deaths. We read about European partial lockdowns and the fact that populations of those countries are pushing back against government mandates because they're simply tired. The United States has surpassed 10 million cases and is consistently seeing 100,000 new cases a day. Deaths remain around 1,000 a day. Many hospitals in the upper Midwest are at capacity. Massachusetts has 165,000 cases and is close to 10,000 deaths since the beginning of the pandemic. Hospitalizations and deaths across the state have doubled over the last month. The state has recalibrated its color-coded map, and that's going to make it very difficult to track the trends, at least for a few weeks or so. In the new system, the number of towns in the red has gone from 121 down to 16, but Springfield is among the 16. At Bay State Health, we have inched into the 40s. Remember, we were hovering around 10 in early September. Today, we have 46 cases across the system, 3 in the intensive care unit, 3 in our community hospitals. We continue to test about 1,000 folks a day. We have no issues with personal protective equipment or supplies. We would love to test more, but we're limited by reagents, and we continue to hustle to increase that supply and hopefully increase the amount of testing we're doing. With respect to our own surge capacity at Springfield, we could open up to 100 beds without closing down any services, and open up to 300 if we discontinued elective procedures as we did back in March. There are no signs of spread among staff or patients at any of our hospitals, and so I'd reinforce to folks that it is safe to come in for regular care, that other diseases are not taking a vacation because of COVID. There are some new restrictions announced by the governor this last week in response to this surge. The mayor mentioned the curfew from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. and the stoppage of service in various establishments at 9:30 p.m. There also was a ruling about the reduction in sizes for private gatherings from 25 down to 10 indoors and from 50 down to 25 outdoors. Remember, it's private gatherings that are the highest source of spread and the most frequent clusters that are reported to the state. This means that it would be advisable to plan a smaller Thanksgiving celebration or a virtual one. Rules for gatherings in public places like restaurants and wedding venues, funeral homes, etc. remains the same, 25 indoors, between 50 and 100 outdoors based on what color code your town is in. The governor's also issued guidance around face coverings in all public places, regardless of the distance. And so we all ought to be wearing face coverings when we're out and about, just as a way to make it simple for public health authorities to enforce compliance. There also are new regulations related to nursing homes. Nursing homes can be closed to new admission based on the spread of COVID within a facility. The elderly and long-term care institutions account for a majority of the COVID deaths in this state. And nursing homes over the last few months have been subject to a variety of regulations, including attestations around protective equipment, as well as regular spot testing of staff. Finally, the governor is, in spite of the surge, has been urging school districts to go back to some form of face-to-face classes. This seems a little paradoxical, but it's because of data that has come not only from Massachusetts, but from other states like New York, that following the current guidelines leads to very low rates of transmission. The New York study that has been cited is of 1,800 public schools and 16,000 students and staff tested over a 3-week period, with only 28 transmissions being seen. This is consistent with what we know about the disease in younger children, that there is lower rates of transmission and lower severity of illness among younger students. Many countries have been able to tough it out with an occasional case here or there and to get schools back open. Superintendent Warwick and I were speaking just before the conference, and he continues to have reasonable concerns about the ventilation in many of the older buildings, and so that may well delay things for Springfield. But I think from the standpoint of virus spread, there is less concern in small school children based on these current data. Finally, let me comment on our recent election. Whether you were pleased or disappointed by the result of the presidential election, I think it's very clear that we all live in a very divided country. We see it in the communities we serve at Bay State Health because we serve all the communities of Western Massachusetts. Political and policy decisions often have health consequences, and there are two groups that I'm especially worried about. The first are communities of color, whose lives are shortened by a lack of economic opportunity, housing insecurity, food insecurity, stress-related illness, mental health issues, and an excess burden of chronic diseases. And this has been made only worse, of course, by the pandemic. We know that those communities in Springfield have a lifespan that is 10 years shorter than suburban, mostly white communities. There's also another group, and that is white communities in rural areas, often without a college education, and their lifespan at birth is actually going down, which is an extremely rare thing. This is due to so-called diseases of despair, including substance use disorder, alcoholism, and suicide. These too stem from a lack of economic opportunity and a frayed social fabric. I think the saddest thing about our current polarized politics is that these groups have been set against each other, and each regards the other as a threat, and that's really tragic, and something we reject at Bay State Health. We are there for all communities and all groups, and hope that as we pursue our mission, we can move to a sense of community that the country truly needs. Part of being there for everybody in Western Mass is being a credible source of information, even when that information is hard to hear. I was disappointed to see that a majority of the counties with the highest rates of COVID-19 voted Republican and stated that they believed that they were turning the corner on the pandemic, even as all the data suggested they were doing anything but, and were actually rising. There are few, if any, public health experts who believe we're turning a corner. So I think somehow people like me are not getting through to some of the people who need to hear this message, and we need to rethink how to get the ear of those vulnerable populations. We have our work cut out for us in getting our message across. For today, I don't know what else to say, but that we clearly are in a second surge, and it couldn't come at a worse time. Please follow the guidelines as currently reissued: face covering, social distancing, hand washing. They're not a guarantee of safety, but they greatly lower your risk, and they can stop spread. If we can maintain the mindset of being careful in simple ways in public places, we can reduce the frequency and the impact of all of these clusters and really begin then to reopen our economy, which all of us very much want to see. But it rests on the commitment of all of us. So thank you again for your time, Mr. Mayor, and I guess we'll answer questions now.
Dr. Carroll will take questions that you might have. Audrey Russo, Western Mass News, please.
I wanted to ask about the news that we all got this morning about the Pfizer vaccine showing 90% effectiveness. And I was wondering, is this a peer-reviewed study showing that?
The Pfizer was a company announcement. That is to say, they're running a large test of tens of thousands of individuals, and they've simply announced that the vaccine is highly effective in healthy people. 90% of the time, it produces an antibody. That is half the battle. It also has to be shown to be safe, too, free of side effects, and they have to persuade a scientific advisory panel. And so there are a number of hurdles that they need to get through. Now, it's very good news, but they simply asserted this themselves, very much as some of the other manufacturers have said good news about their progress. I don't doubt that they're making progress, but they need to kind of get past the scientific advisory panel and the FDA before it's final. So happy for the news, but it ain't over till it's over.
And do you know how long that process takes to go through the scientific community?
I don't know precisely for Pfizer. I don't know if this moves the timeline up more quickly. The efficacy statement suggests that they have enough what's called statistical power, meaning enough people in the study where one side got the infection and the other side was protected so that it would be statistically convincing. That's a big milestone to hit. I still think that the approval from the scientific oversight groups is probably going to be late this year, early next year. And then once that happens, while they have tens of millions of doses stockpiled, it's going to be several months to roll it out. I'm still sticking by my prediction, not that my crystal ball is any better than anybody else's, that it's going to be late spring before we start losing these things and seeing, only a trickle of cases from time to time. But we'll see. It could happen faster. I just think that for all the hurdles that have to be gotten past, it is going to be still several months.
And one last question on this, because, and I think you've answered this before, but I just want to refresh my memory. Have there been any trials done through Bay State or anywhere in Western Massachusetts that you know of?
Have there been any what? I am not aware of any trials of the Pfizer vaccine going on at Bay State.
Nicoresco, 22, at all?
Dr. Kerouac, just out of curiosity, some pretty news reports about Pfizer's release today included quotes from members of the scientific community who were frankly shocked at this particular number. Are you surprised to find that if you take it at face value that it's as much as 90% effective, or is there been other indication or maybe just some pessimism that the efficacy rate might be relatively low?
Yeah, there's no reason to believe that the vaccine couldn't be 90% effective. There are vaccines out there today, like the measles vaccine, that are in the high 90s as effective. When you look at a vaccine like flu vaccine, it's closer to 60, 70% effective. And so, does it surprise me that it's 90% effective? No, it just depends on how well they have selected the protein that provokes an immune response and how close that immune response is to neutralizing the key protein on the virus. I have no reason to doubt the 90% number. It likely would be a little bit less in people with chronic diseases or the elderly who don't form as brisk an immune response, but 90% is nothing to sneeze at, and is certainly enough if the vaccine were widely disseminated for us to eradicate it or get it down to a very low level.
And I'm reading a little bit about the 1890, we were here for 1918 flu pandemic, but there's reading about the 1890 one, which is some scientists think may have been a coronavirus itself, and now obviously we don't have pandemics related to that virus. Is there any emerging thought that this could ultimately just become another cold? I mean, right down the line, could vaccines accelerate that timeline, something like that, or is it not going to work?
Yeah, we have had multi-country epidemics with coronaviruses, both the SARS epidemic of the early 2000s and the Mideastern MERS epidemic were coronaviruses that lacked the ability of this particular, of COVID-19 to spread so efficiently before symptoms occur. If you ask me to guess what does the end game look like, what are we doing 5 years from now, I think there's always going to be a little bit of COVID-19 in the background. Most people will be immune. We'll see occasional cases. And when you come in today to Bay State with a flu-like disease, we test you for 20 different viruses. 5 years from now, that'll be 21. That'll include COVID-19. And so we're always going to see a little bit of COVID-19 around, I think, and it'll be just part of the woodwork and part of what we deal with.
Is there any, just one more question on this, we're kind of down to weeds, but it seems to, with a lot of the symptoms that we see from COVID are the body's overreaction to the virus, and that's what the fatalities are, that's what the long-term are. Is this something that's, I mean, well, I think about like the AIDS virus, that's actually attacking the immune system, and that causes something later that results in death, doesn't kill in and of itself. Is it uncommon in viruses generally where really it's just the body's overreaction, the body's reaction is causing this, or is that something that's relatively unique to COVID-19?
It is very, very common. It's not unique to COVID-19. It's not even unique to viruses. There is a syndrome called the Systemic Inflammatory Response Syndrome, or SIRS for short, which is our shorthand way of describing an overreaction by the immune system to widespread infection. Happens all the time, every day at Bay State when somebody gets a bacteria in their bloodstream. And there are standard treatments for it, et cetera. It can happen during severe flu and severe hepatitis, severe mono. I mean, the list goes on and on. And so this is not some unique trick it's pulling.
Any other questions of Dr. Kerouac? Okay, hearing now, Dr. Kerouac, thank you so
My pleasure,
much.
Mr. Mayor. Thank you, everybody.
Appreciate you being here. Good health to you and your family and your staff. And also, besides the flu shots, flu shots are available. Please make sure. I know Dr. Kerouac has said that. Dr. Roos, Commissioner Helen Carlton-Harris will say that again now. So as she gets her charts ready to go. I will bring up my or our Dr. Anthony Fauci, the Commissioner of Health and Human Services, Helen Carlton Harris, who her and her team and everyone have done a yeoman job. Heed her advice, please. Helen Carlton Harris.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, as always, for your support. We will start with the data. The data from the city of Springfield. You have heard the mayor give an overview, and you've heard Dr. Kerouac give an overview. But statewide, there are 166,745 cases. Statewide positives were really increased. Friday, there were 2,038 positive cases in the Commonwealth. Saturday, 2,220 positive cases in the Commonwealth, and Saturday, 1,890 cases in the Commonwealth. And so that tells you that certainly in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, what we are seeing is a surge. You heard Dr. Kerouac say it, and certainly we are feeling it here and understanding that in the city of Springfield, we are experiencing this surge. I want to start with the map. I'm going to start with the map that is on the floor, that has the red dots, that has the zip codes. And if you look at that map, on that map, there were 2,481 unique locations that we have had since the beginning of this virus. We also see on that map, if we look in the zip codes, where we're seeing clusters. The red dots that you're seeing are new cases since we began this latest surge. The darker or gray dots are cases that we had prior to the September 21st, a surge that we are experiencing. And so when you look across this map, you certainly can see definitely in the city of Springfield what we are experiencing in our zip codes. The confirmed cases in our city, if you look at, it's on board number 1, or the board immediately to my left. There are, on Monday, there were 43 cases. Tuesday, 23. Wednesday, 40. Thursday, 102. Friday, 58. Saturday, 90. And 23 on Sunday. I'm going to ask you to look at board 2, where it says City of Springfield confirmed COVID-19 cases, weekly comparisons. And so as you can see, the week of October 19th, you see the cases there. You see how that Monday is progressing through the week of October 26th and the week of November 2nd. So, and looking at this data, it just simply shows you a week-by-week comparison of where we are and how our cases are increasing in our city. And so that 102 and that 90 that we're seeing are definitely increases that we have not experienced, as the mayor said, since April and May. Also, I'm going to stay with board number 2 and look at the cases by age group. And so you can see the 0 to 10, there are 20, 11 to 20, 63, 21 to 30, 74, 31 to 40, 64, 41 to 50, 57, 51 to 60, 48, 61 to 70, 37, 71 to 80, 13, and 81 to 92. The City of Springfield confirmed COVID-19 percentage by age. We're looking at board number 2 again, that under 30-year-old is 41%, 31 to 50, 32%, and the 51 and older is 27%. The cases by zip code, as you can see, the largest zip codes that we're seeing increases in all zip codes across the city. So I don't want to point out zip codes punitively. I'm pointing out zip codes so that we know where the cases are and where we're seeing the highest rate of infection. Continue to see in 01104 where you see that 68, 01107 has 41, 01108, 60, 01109, 76. If you remember, you know that these zip codes have been consistently, or at least 01104, 8, and 9 have been consistently high in the in what we're seeing. And so as we look at these percentages, we're looking at board number 1, the city of Springfield confirmed COVID-19 cases by zip code. And so you can see the percentages there. 01104 is 18%, 01108, 16%, 01109, 20%. But we are again experiencing a surge across the city. 01118 now, well, this week was 8% of our cases. That's an increase. 01109 is 9% of our cases. That is an increase. 01151, 5% of our cases. That is an increase. And so it's important as an acknowledgement to understand that we are seeing an increase across the city, again, in every single zip code. We want to look at, on board number 1, the confirmed cases weekly comparison by zip code. So what we've done here is look at the zip codes and went 3 weeks back to look at where the progression of the virus is. And as you can see, that there is absolutely an increase. I told you about that 01118, where it was 15 3 weeks ago, 23 cases last week, 32 cases this week. So as you can see, there's an increase across every single zip code in our city, some more than others. And so the virus is a virus that is not knowing geographical boundaries, but is certainly a virus that we are experiencing all over our city. We need to behave when we see each other like everyone we meet is COVID-19 positive. That is how we futuristically must approach each other, because it's not what you look like, it's not the clothes you're wearing, it's not the colors you have on, it's not your race, it's not your ethnicity, it is behaviors that is driving this second surge. If we look at board number 2 in race and ethnicity, 26% was unknown. So we could not determine by the data that we sent, it said unknown. So in the African American Black community, last week cases was 21%. The Latinx community, 24%. The white community, 27%. So what we could identify in the city of Springfield as far as race is concerned tells us that there is a distribution of this virus across all races in our city. Obviously, there are higher incidences as we take a look back. We know that certain ethnicities and races are experiencing disproportionate increase. However, this week is what we're looking at, and it appears to be evenly distributed. Now, keep in mind, we don't know the data from that unknown, so that could skew one way or the other, but certainly it is clear to me that the behaviors or the virus in our past week is spreading in each one of our races and ethnicities. The mayor told you there were 4,581 is the total cases for the city of Springfield that we have to date. So that means that since we started keeping the data, and remember, we are in this city using confirmed cases. The week of November 2nd, which is the week I just reported, there were 379 cases in the city of Springfield. And so the changes that Dr. Kerouac talked about as far as the Commonwealth is concerned, and their changes really speak to community size. In municipalities with over 50,000 residents, 25 or more per 100,000 residents is something that gets you in the red. Also, a case positivity rate that is over 5% will get us in the red. Springfield currently is very close with that 4.97% positivity rate, and we do have over 25 cases per 100,000. In order to get us back to yellow, we're going to need to significantly decrease that. The average statewide daily incident, now keep in mind Springfield's is 25, the average for the Commonwealth is 15.3. And so the average positivity rate in the Commonwealth at this point is 4.14. So as you can see, we are exceeding both of those metrics at this point. 211 positive cases the week of October 19th. 313 cases the week of October 26th. 379 cases this past week. We have had 168 case increase since October 19th, a 66 case increase since last week, and household transmissions continue to be the primary source of the spread. If you look at that map, since September 21st, you can identify clusters where the red dots are very close to each other. That can be potentially considered a cluster because we know those individuals are living close to each other. So small and large gatherings continue to be a primary source of infection. The number of cases under the age of 50 now make up 73% of the cases. Last week, that was 80%. So that age group under 50 has decreased by 7%. 21.8 were under the age of 20, 36.4 were between the ages of 21 and 40, 58.2, if you add those two together, are under the age of 40. 26.6 are over the age of 50, which is an increase from last week. That's important because that 7% that decreased in the under 50 age category now is sitting in the older age category. Why does that make a difference? It makes a difference because those are the individuals that we get concerned about as far as hospitalization is concerned. So our numbers primarily under the age of 50 is what we're looking at as far as that large total is concerned, but we are seeing in our city a shift to the older population. Older individuals have potentially underlying conditions, more chronic disease, and are at higher risk. So again, individuals all across the age spectrum, but particularly those over the age of 50, please be as vigilant. If you live in households with young people, please ask them to make sure that they are being vigilant. We are extremely concerned about our populations that are on the older spectrum. I've talked to you about the zip codes and the percentages, but 54% of the cases in our city are in 01104, 01108, and 01109. Last week, that was 55%. So that means that those percentages and those zip codes have remained pretty steady, and that's not what we want to see. We want to see all of our zip codes go down as far as the case rate is concerned. Our outreach has continued to neighborhood councils and civic associations. We have heard from information from individuals as far as face covering is concerned who are asking if we can help with face coverings in some neighborhoods. We have done that. We do not have face coverings that we can give out in huge numbers, but we certainly, the city wants you to be safe. The mayor has directed that we, to the degree we can, and not sacrifice face coverings for frontline individuals, that we cooperate with the neighborhood councils. Other neighborhood councils have asked for hand sanitizers. Again, please call our hotline, or you can call me directly, which most of you have, and we certainly will get you what supplies we can legitimately spare to help you and your neighborhood residents. We are continuing to work to hand out educational material so that people can understand in the appropriate languages the kind of outreach we want to have. We have worked with the Springfield School Department, and the superintendent will talk about this a bit. There was a stop the spread, or the testing of the athletes on Tuesday and Thursday. It went very well. Again, I am appreciative, so appreciative of the team that we have. I thank the mayor for his guidance and support. Superintendent Warwick, certainly Assistant Superintendent Lydia Martinez, who called me on Friday, I believe, just to make sure that I was updated and I understood how it went and things that were going on. She and I were both at the site on Tuesday watching the setup, so that, and I say that because it's important to understand how we work across venues, because we all care about keeping the city of Springfield and our students and residents safe. We do not have the results of all of those tests, but we're looking forward to getting them. I want to also thank Patrick Sullivan and his team on the initiative working with Fallon, who did the testing, setting up the tents. They were there for a long period of time. They did a great job communicating, so thank you to Patrick Sullivan and his team as well. If you think about it, it took 3 city departments, as well as the leadership of the superintendent and the mayor, to bring that together. Also want to make sure we're acknowledging the school committee and their role in making sure that the testing went forward. I've received calls from pediatricians expressing their concerns. Their concerns about children that they are seeing, and their concerns about the fact that they're concerned about children not getting exercise, they're concerned about obesity, they're concerned about mental health, they're concerned about behavioral health. And I said to each one of them, there is nobody that wants our children back in school more than Mayor Sarno and Superintendent Warwick. We really know the importance of the social engagement of the children. However, having said that, I've also said to them that we must do it in a responsible way, and we need to make sure that our buildings are safe, and we need to make sure that our cases are at a place where we feel as though we can move forward with children in a safe environment. It is not my decision. It is not the decision of anyone except the school committee and certainly the superintendent on how we will move forward. But they will use science, they will use public health, they will use guidance. They want these children back in school. I think it's important to say that, because no one is sitting around saying, let's stay remote. We are saying, let's do it the safest way we can, because we want our children back in school, but we also want them to be safe. So I'm acknowledging at this point the calls I've received from pediatricians. I thank them. We will continue to talk. We have other Zoom meetings set up, and we'll continue to have that conversation because the goal is the same for all of us. The City of Springfield continues to get guidance or complaints or concerns from individuals who are going into locations where people are not adhering to the guidance. You're not adhering to the guidance. I've gotten a call about a large facility that individuals over the weekend held a gathering with individuals who were walking around with no face coverings. I am not going to call out that establishment because I don't think we want to be in the punitive business, but certainly if it were not for the fact that I feel it is politically incorrect to do so, I would certainly call out those names, because I think if you are blatant enough during this environment to ignore good public health advice, then you deserve to have your name mentioned in a way that is not positive. However, I will not do that yet. What I am saying is please adhere to the guidance that has been given. We are going to have folks out there looking at what is going on, and we will issue citations. Dr. Kerouac did mention this, but let me quickly say the stay-at-home advisory, 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. unless critical errors, health needs. The governor's request is that you not go to a friend's house, that you go home. He would like individuals to be home by 10. The entertainment advisory, all entertainment venues, including theaters, casinos, museums, salons, gyms, must close by 9:30. This also includes recreational, marijuana, and alcohol. Face coverings. Face coverings must be worn at all times, and the 6 feet distance is no longer an acceptable requirement. So the 6 feet is out. The governor is asking all of us to wear face coverings no matter how close or how far away we are to individuals. Private residences go from 25 indoors to 10 indoors. For outdoors, 50 is for red community. So outdoors for Springfield is 50. Make sure that you are wearing your face coverings. Face coverings are not required if you're at home. Again, let me say to you, if someone comes in your environment who is not a member of your household, you're not used to being around, please ask them to put on a face covering. Again, law enforcement, for the purposes of this regulations, are empowered by Mass General laws to enforce them under the Public Health Code, which is Mass General Laws, Section 111, Mass General Laws 111, Section 30. Travel orders. California has been taken off of the list. The only approved states now are DC, Hawaii, Maine, New Hampshire, New York, Vermont, and Washington State. California has been removed. Stop the spread. AMR, I am so, I cannot tell you how grateful we are in terms of the fantastic work you and your team are doing, Patrick, so thank you. They have tested a total to date of 36,749. Springfield residents are 14,903, and the positives of that is 1,887. They have reported this last weekend their busiest weekend ever. Friday, 1,252 tests were performed. Saturday, 976. Sunday, 902. Total 3,130 tests have been performed. We are in a surge, and it's up to each one of us how we behave during what is a very difficult time for all of us. Flu shots, it is critical particularly those who are, we're asking everyone to get a flu shot, but certainly if you are in a high-risk category, have a chronic disease, are over the age of 50, we also know that children are required to get a flu shot as well. Get your whole family who are over the age of 6 months. Make sure they have a flu shot. We'll talk about Thanksgiving. However, based on the governor's guidance, we are asking Thanksgiving that it be small gatherings. I think Dr. Kerouac has talked about this. Our world has changed, and it has changed until we get a vaccine or we get this virus under control. And right now, in the city of Springfield, it is not under control. I ask you to continue to work with the local officials in our city. Please help us defeat COVID-19. We can't do this without you. This is an individual decision. You have a choice. The officials, the law enforcement, health, the mayor, none of us can be at home with you. We can't walk with you every day. We issue guidance and we ask that you follow our guidance. And if you follow this guidance, I promise we will see our numbers in a place where we want them to be. We can't have we cannot have an economically sound, vibrant business community without getting this virus under control. And I think you've heard that. Finally, I'm going to take a moment of personal privilege to congratulate Vice President-elect Biden. I'm going to congratulate Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, who is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. She is my sorority sister, and we as an organization, and certainly me and the rest of our community, are certainly very proud of having her lead this country, and a woman in that position and a Black woman in that position really is something that's so quite amazing. And that's why we know that in the United States of America, anything is possible. Thank you.
She has a sorority sweater on today, if you can tell. And please heed Commissioner Colton Harris's advice, and to the establishments that were not operating properly, please cease and desist, because Commissioner Colton Harris and myself will have no issue, when appropriate, coming down with the hammer. So you've been forewarned. You young people are not invincible. And also to some that Commissioner Colton brought up, the arrogance of saying that you don't need to wear the mask and everything's okay is full of you-know-what. And it shows in the facts. So you're fair warned. Be fair warned now. So don't be surprised if Helen and I make some statements as early as after this press conference. So be forewarned on that. Follow the public health guidelines, or you will face fines and penalties and other licensing type aspects. So we'll leave it at that for right now. We'll now go into the public safety component of this COVID-19 update, and I'll bring up the Fire Commissioner of the City of Springfield, Bernard B.J. Calvi.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everybody. At the fire department today, we have one person out in quarantine due to COVID. At the dispatch center, we have 2 dispatchers currently out in COVID quarantine. So we're in pretty good shape on that front. Everything continues. We're out there serving, making sure we can still do our jobs and make sure we can get the service to the citizens of Springfield as needed. On a safety note this week, we did have a rescue from the pond this weekend where someone got stuck in the mud due to the drawdown. People are gonna go out there and walk around, make sure you're careful, don't get yourself into spots where you can't get yourself back out of. That's all I've got for today. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Calvi. Thank you, Commissioner Calvi. Representing Commissioner Cheryl Claproot is Deputy Commissioner Bill Cochran of the Springfield Police Department.
Morning, thank you, Mayor. In the Springfield Police Department, we currently have 8 officers that have tested positive for COVID and are out of work. We have 14 additional officers that have had an exposure to COVID and have been tested and are awaiting results. We also have 7 recruit officers in the current police academy that have had exposures and that are out now and awaiting testing results. Over the past weekend, quickly, we had 6 firearms recovered, and we had 2 shooting incidences with 3 victims. On Friday, narcotics detectives arrested a gentleman with a firearm who was on a GPS bracelet for a September 2019 shooting where a gun and a large amount of heroin was recovered. On Friday night, there was 2 shooting victims from an incident on West Street. 2 firearms were recovered. 1 victim was shot in the car, and the other one went to Bay State Medical Center with a minor wound. Both are expected to recover. On Saturday, narcotics detectives arrested a 16-year-old with a loaded semi-automatic firearm and a realistic-looking Glock BB gun. And the last one was on Saturday night. A shotgun victim walked into the Bay State from an incident at Littleton and Freeman Terrace. The victim was inside a car at the time when he was shot and is expected to be okay. Busy weekend. I want to thank everybody on Election Day. We had any issues with traffic, pedestrians, no issues at the polls. We appreciate it. Maybe a lot of that has to do with early voting and mail-in voting, so we appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Cochran. Thank you, Deputy Cochran. You hear a familiar story there? Repeat violent criminal offenders, gun charges, and once again our court system lets these individuals go with a little slap in the hand. Put this bracelet on, please, for me, and be a good boy, be a good girl. And what do? We pick them up not even months later, shooting someone else. Goes on and on and on. And the people of this good city, of all creed, colors, and backgrounds, want safety, want quality of life in their neighborhoods and streets. So once again, I call out the court system and some judges to please see that these bracelets in these serious charges do not work. The police department, the brave and dedicated men and women in blue are out there day in, day out, taking guns off our street. Keep these repeat violent criminal offenders, and I don't care what type of background they come from, locked up before they injure or kill somebody else. With that, I'm going to bring up Superintendent Dan Warwick, Springfield Public School Systems. He will give you an update, and I appreciate he and his team for the continued efforts to keep education going in the city of Springfield. Springfield School Superintendent Dan Warwick.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everyone. We have some good news for you today. I think in a city like Springfield, where food insecurity is a significant problem, my staff, working with Sodexo, has delivered more than 4 million meals, 4,064,026 since school closure in March. So we've continued to do the outreach in the community, set up an effective system so our families can deal with this food insecurity issue. Just this weekend alone, we provided 101,560 meals for families. We're going to be closed Wednesday for Veterans Day, but the distribution on Monday is going to carry the families through till the Friday distribution, so they're going to be taken care of. As we talked about earlier, we've continued to work with O'Reilly, Talbot, and Oken and Bob Kirshner, working in conjunction with Pat Sullivan and Helen, our Public Health Commissioner, to do a complete analysis of all of our buildings and ensure that all of our buildings don't only meet the DESI standard, but meet a higher ASHRAE standard for ventilation, which I think we should all aspire to. Most communities in the state didn't bother doing that, but we have moved forward and do that and done that, and are working now to rectify the issues we have. Looking at our buildings, because of all the great investments made under this mayor, our buildings were in really good shape and really exceeded all the DESI standards, but there's more work to be done for us in some of our buildings, and the mayor has stepped forward with $2.5 million to pay for these building improvements, again, not out of the school budget. So as with the PPE, same thing with these ventilation systems, the mayor has found other sources of money. So unlike a lot of other communities where they've been laying off teachers to pay for some of these improvements, the mayor has stepped up and is paying for it. And again, putting his money where his mouth is, and as a chair of our school committee, prioritizing our kids here in the city of Springfield. We're going to have a town hall meeting. We had a very successful town hall meeting early in the fall where we actually were able to get input in 7 different languages and translate into 7 different languages. That was a huge success and a big tribute to my staff, but Focus Springfield. Focus Springfield is now getting equipment so we can do that again. We were going to hold one November 10th. They don't have the equipment to do that right now, but we're working with Focus Springfield to do another town hall meeting. So again, we can get input from all of our families here in Springfield before we make a decision on how we're going to move forward in our schools. Flu shots, remember, they're mandated for families, and there's information on our website on where people can pursue those flu shots, but they're very, very important. Again, with the support of the mayor, we not only were able to provide laptops for all of our K-12 students, we're now continuing to distribute iPads for our preschool students, so they're available. They can be distributed from your local school, but if a family can't get to their school, we'll deliver them to the home. Simply call the principal at your school. With Commissioner Helen Carlton-Harris's support, we're doing a sports retest. We actually tested all the students, coaches, and any family members who wanted to be tested. Right now, it looks like the incidence is very low, but we're going to analyze that before we determine whether we restart fall sports. But I think we're going to have information on that as soon as today, final information. They're going to be able to finish that fall season because the incidence seemed to be very low, but more information will be forthcoming on that. Remember, we have a helpline that we put in place, and again, information on the website on that, so that anyone who is having any technical difficulties can get help there. There's a great deal of discussion in the Commonwealth right now about MCAS testing. The Superintendent's Association has taken a position on that, and our position is that we think we should suspend MCAS testing only for this year. I believe, and most of my colleagues believe, that accountability is very important, but to give MCAS to make accountability decisions in this environment seems ludicrous given all of what we've been dealing with this pandemic. And we all know that there's been an issue with learning during the transition, especially back in the spring. But here in Springfield, we've really worked hard to implement a very effective remote program. We've kept our counselors working. We've worked hard. We actually expanded City Connects so that families are getting the mental health services that they need, as well as the educational services that they need. We did get hit with a ransomware attack. We're doing a full analysis on how that happened, and we're in the recovery mode as we speak. But our systems for our kids, we prioritized our learning systems, and we have all of them, and we have had all of them back up and running. We worked over the weekend when that occurred. So we're in recovery mode from that ransomware attack, and all of our systems are up and running. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Warwick. You and your teams, all your efforts for our children and families and staff, teachers, and administration. Patrick Sullivan, the Director of Facilities and Parks, a.k.a. the Wizard of Oz, has been doing yeoman efforts, he and his team, to make sure that our buildings are going to be properly COVID-19 above and beyond qualified. And Pat, you and your team, I really appreciate all your efforts. The Director of Facilities and Parks, Pat Sullivan.
Thank you, Mayor. Since we met this morning, we increased by one more, so we are now up to 8 out with COVID, but I think that shows that the contact tracing does work. That employee was called this morning, and he was sent home. So Helen, thank you for you and your team for following up daily with everyone. As the Mayor indicated on Friday evening, it was decided due to the numbers in these charts, you can see it was not safe to open up Sea Arena at this time. So Helen and I have issued guidance to the teams, and we will continue to monitoring and try to get them. I think the Mayor's office is going to post that guidance on the website today. All the orders have been placed for the iWaves and the carrier air purifiers for the classrooms. So over the next 2 weeks, we'll be getting delivery notices and can work with the superintendent and the mayor in announcing a schedule of when these buildings would be ready. And we hear you, Helen, loud and clear on the importance of getting them reopened. But I want to congratulate the mayor, the school committee, Helen, and the superintendent in doing what is best for the students and teachers and making sure we have the best air quality to prevent this virus. In non-COVID, as the mayor indicated, we received a grant on Friday for Loon Pond. Loon Pond is located on Boston Road and Pasco Road. It's a hidden jewel. It's one of the few kettle hole lakes that remain in the city of Springfield, and we're excited for the grant opportunities that will serve Pine Point and the Indian Orchard neighborhoods. And then lastly, I just want to thank Commissioner Calvi, Commissioner Clapper, and Deputy Chief Cochran. They coordinated the efforts of removing the 6 vehicles from water shops and are investigating those 6 vehicles. But great work in getting that done. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Sullivan. You received brief updates. Again, Director Signoli is unable to be with us today, and you received an update I gave on Attorney, HR Director, Labor Director Bill Mahoney, and Solicitor Pakula, and Finance TJ Plant. So with that, I will open it up to questions or comments of my cabinet heads or myself.
Mayor?
Yep.
Commissioner Palmer mentioned the amount of testing that's going on with AMR and some of the other testing sites globally. It's anecdotally and obviously the data as well showing there's incredible demand for this. Has there been any requests or any efforts to try to have additional sites, more capacity in the city itself? And I also know people are coming from all over the region to use these testing facilities as well. And it's obvious that there's at a minimum demand is higher than what the capacity is, even if the testing and the positives aren't quite at that level. So I'm just curious if there's been any progress in trying to just get more and more capacity.
As I told you, as I stated earlier, I spoke with the governor a couple times Friday evening. We always, I'll bring Commissioner Colton Harris, Helen up, we always ask for more testing. We've said that right from the beginning. We want more and more testing. As Dr. Kerouac also indicated, too, they want more testing, but obviously getting the materials and ingredients that are needed for that is difficulty too. That's why, and hopefully with the change that's going to occur now on the federal level, there must, and I think Helen said it, I've said it, there has to be a national mandate, a national strategy from the top that trickles down on it. Full focus, because we will defeat this COVID-19, but without that, you're not going to get the public confidence, the consumer confidence, or the business confidence. I'm going to let Helen speak. We ask for it all the time, and we want more and more, because then you identify and we can get on top on mitigation. Commissioner Carlton Harris?
Thank you. So to answer your question, we have engaged Fallon, who is now Transformative Care. They will be standing up at Putnam. We believe either later this week or early next week. So we will have another entity on site for testing, hopefully beginning Thursday or Friday, or definitely Monday of next week, and that site will be Putnam. Thank you to the superintendent for allowing, obviously, us to use Putnam, and Patrick Sullivan for making the arrangements, but we will expand our capacity.
Has there been any coordination or communication with some of your counterparts in some of the other large cities in the area that have seen really high spreads in terms of making sure that people don't have to truck in from Westfield or Warwick to Springfield to get kind of testing? Like, is there any working together trying to lobby the state to help with that or anything like that?
Well, you know that there is a site on the campus of Holyoke Community College, and so that is a Stop the Spread site. And so, yes, if you go to the website of mass.gov, the Stop the Spread sites are listed, and as you suggested, anyone can come to that site. And the site is quite clear about anyone being able to use any site that is a Stop the Spread site. You heard from, when I gave the numbers from AMR, over 20,000, I believe, of the tests that they've done were not City of Springfield residents. So people are finding their way to our Stop the Spread sites to be tested.
And while you're up there, I'm just curious, when you're seeing these, obviously the spread is everywhere in the city now, but it still is heavily concentrated in a few areas in the city. I realize that Springfield is not New York City, but I know that they've done like a very, intense focus on hotspots within the zip codes that are particularly high incidence rates. Is there any strategy or any idea of maybe trying to micro-target any type of, if not restrictions, maybe like a step of enforcement or step of testing in areas to try to bring down the incidence rate in the area that zip codes are particularly bad?
We have stepped up our outreach in those zip codes where we see the cases are rising. Also, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has the ambassador program, and so they also stand up sites in high prevalence areas to be able to get information out. So the answer to your question is yes. As a municipality, as a city, we look at those numbers and try to make decisions based on those numbers around our outreach, making sure that our staff are keeping themselves safe, as well as reaching out to residents and asking for compliance. Our primary focus in many cases is the residents, but also the businesses in those areas. We're also hopeful to make sure those places are complying as well.
Just to let you know, too, specific instances here. I mean, AMR has been fantastic. My former chief of staff, Denise Jordan, who's now the executive director of Springfield Housing Authority, they needed testing there. Dr. Kerouac, Bay State Health System, stepped up to do that specific. Superintendent Warwick, with Commissioner Helen Carlton Harris and our school committee, we wanted to go above and beyond what DESE is required. We brought in Fallon to do specific testing to our student athletes. So we're being, Helen and I advocate day and night for it. I would assume, and I know other mayors are advocating for testing too, but we advocate for more and more testing here. A lot of people, again, we are the capital of Western Massachusetts, they tend to want to migrate and come to the city of Springfield. Whether it's Bay State was doing testing early, AMR, at the facilities that we're doing it there. So where we see, and with the Housing Authority, obviously, that's in a couple of those zip codes that were targeted there. So we're going to continue to go after anything and everything when it pertains to testing. But I'll tell you what, the time was before. Now a national strategy has to and must be put forth. You cannot have governors that were competing against governors, mayors that were competing against mayors. Now is the time. This is the second surge. So we have to starve this COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic, starve it. And in the meantime, there's some good news coming on the vaccine front. And then people, as Helen said, Helen and I can't be out there with everybody every hour of the day. No, common sense. We're telling you what to do, which is proven. So you can't be arrogant about that. Yes, Audrey.
And so I guess my next question can back off of this and my involvement as well. Has there been any thought to, because I know you're pushing education, has there been any thought to maybe closing some of the areas where people might congregate in those zip codes, like Forest Park, like public parks, tennis courts, anything like that, if the spread continues to become rampant or not go down the trend?
Well, we haven't seen, you're saying those targeted areas there. I'll have Pat Sullivan come up, but we haven't seen those spikes. We've seen spikes mainly in residential, and when we see gatherings coming together, then through the health department and or if we have to, the police department on it. But it's a balancing act here. We also have been trying to give, I'll bring Director Sullivan up, passive recreation opportunities, just not only for health, physical health, mental health on it. But again, one of the first ones ahead of the state to take down every basketball hoop in the city of Springfield, where other cities, they stalled on that. So we have taken, we're trying to do a balancing act, but I'll have Pat come up and speak of that. We're doing it with the Sea Arena right now.
Helen and I travel the city on a daily basis, and we communicate probably 10, 15 times a day. Yeah, that's my fault. But in the parks, we're not seeing that. We're seeing everyone being very respectful, and they're wearing a mask or they're staying that safe social distance. So if we saw something, we would attend to it immediately. But we feel that the parks offer that peace of mind that people need right now, and I think shutting them down would do a disservice, and it wouldn't solve the issue, as Helen indicated, the mayor indicated. It's more, seems to be related to households rather than open space.
And so I guess, Mayor Turnout, I think a lot of people maybe see what's going on in Europe, seeing them close back down again.
See that again?
People are seeing what's happening in Europe.
Yes.
With them closing back down again and closing curfews. Do you anticipate taking any kind of municipal action outside of what governors already imposed?
No.
If things continue to get worse?
No, I do not at this time. Again, Dr. Kerouac indicated last week also, this is a balancing act. You know me, I'm not afraid to drop the hammer if I have to, but it's a balancing act. You know, we're going to continue to be proactive on education, on what proper public health aspects must and have to be taken. And if you don't do it, after education or warnings, we'll take the appropriate action. But I want to also be cognizant of keeping economic development and businesses going, as long as they are following the prerequisites of the public health guidelines. We're doing the same thing with our school system right now. We're going above and beyond what the state and DESE has recommended, because we believe it is the right thing to do. So there's full confidence on it. So I'm going to do a balancing act, and we're going to continue to do it. It's been successful. We are facing, I mean, we're all facing now across the country and world, the second, it's a surge now going on. But I'm not going to consider a lockdown only if, knock on wood, if things were to get completely out of control. We're following the governor's guidelines. You know, we've spoken to businesses about the 9:30 shutdowns and following the prerequisites. I spoke with Red Rose the other day. They're doing well. They're following all the prerequisites that we put across. And that curfew, which is advisory, but 10 to 5, unless you, for certain reasons, you have to be out there. But I think where you're seeing the uptick is with our young people who feel that they are invincible, and with others who just the arrogance that, you know, nothing's going to happen to me. And unfortunately, people trying to play politics with public health. And that they shouldn't be doing that. So no, at this point in time, no. We're balancing it. The decisions we've been making are based on public health, medical, and the sciences. As you see with the Sea Arena, we decided we want to go another couple of weeks before we consider that. And with our schools, we're going to go above and beyond. So no, there's no consideration of some of the complete lockdowns that have been done. I think we've had some positive mitigation steps that have been helpful, but people have to stay ever vigilant. I know people are tired. I'm tired too. But the patience and cooperation continues to be needed. And there's simple things that you can control. There's got to be some personal responsibility here. Personal responsibility. I'm getting sick and tired at times of people always pointing fingers. What are you doing about it, Commissioner Carlton Harris? What are you doing about it, Sarno? What are you doing about Commissioner Clapper, Superintendent Warwick? Director, what are you doing about it? And sometimes when you look in that mirror, instead of pointing those fingers, look at yourself. So there needs to be personal responsibility on this. We haven't sugarcoated anything. We are in a second surge. We've been up front, and we're so proud when we were a green community, all the things we did it before. We can do it again. And now you're seeing the hospital officials indicating that their numbers are jumping. So that means to you young people out there that you were starting to get hospitalized now when you thought you might not. So I'm sorry to go on this philosophical tirade here, but it really aggravates me at times. But we're going to continue to do a balancing. Any other questions or comments? Yes.
Question about the water shops on
Yes.
drawdown on that. We've been getting a lot of emails and comments from our viewers about, they're worried about the wildlife, they're worried about, the fish, the animals that live around there. Is there any?
We found an old WWLP camera in there too, by the way. So if you want to pick it up, we maybe can negotiate it. I'm going to bring up Mr. Green right now, Director Sullivan, he'll tell you.
Yeah, we've worked with our local conservation commission and the state DEP office, so this was all timed at the proper time, so any wildlife would be hibernating at the proper time. And I think people will see that the environment will improve from this drawdown for any wildlife aspects. So we are working closely with the DEP as we continue this drawdown.
You got to remember the basis of not only the Water Shops Pond Dam, but also the Van Horn Dam up in the Hungry Hill area or Bay State Medical Center area, and this is more the Maple High 6-4 South End area, besides environmental, which we follow those rules and regulation, was public safety. If those dams were ever to go, and that's why I'm very appreciative, Pat Sullivan always has a plan, and then I go after the money. The Van Horn Dam, if that ever went, which we have secured it, that would take out Bay State Medical Center, Atwater, North End. Here, same thing with the Water Shops Pond Dam. That would take out that area that fringes on Maple High, Six Corners, Century, all the way down to the south end. Millions and millions of gallons of water. So it might not be sexy, it's behind the scenes, but if something happened, it becomes a top of the line story. So we're following all those proper requisites. Any other questions or comments? Okay, again, I really thank the media for being here, the TV media, the radio media, the print media, for getting this information out. And anytime we send anything out, I really appreciate it on that. And I want to also thank my cabinet heads and department heads down to rank and file who have been tested and true through a number of natural and man-made disasters. And all our partners, whether from the private sector, the public sector, or the nonprofit sector. And of course, our medical stars, our hospitals, and all our medical and health providers for what they're doing day in and day out. I know it's been a long time, and I know everyone's tired, but we have to stay ever vigilant and follow these guidelines. The better we follow these guidelines, the less stringent we're going to have to get down the road, and the quicker we'll be able to alleviate some of the restrictions and defeat this COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic. So again, to the viewing, listening, and print audience, thank you, thank you, thank you. We're going to get through this. We're going to get through this together, and working in collaboration, cooperation, we will defeat this COVID-19. We will enjoy our upcoming holidays to a lesser extent as far as crowds and families, but everything we do is to get back to a normalcy and get back to the traditions that we cherish day in and day out. So keep the faith, go out and have a great day, good health, and God bless. Thank you very much.